Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Julie Shields-Rutina, and I'm the Director of College Planning, Education, and Training at MEFA. And we're so happy you're joining us this morning for this webinar, Helping Students and Parents Approach the College Choice Systematically. And let me just tell you a little bit about MEFA and the logistics of the webinar, and then I will introduce our expert presenter today. So MEFA is a not-for-profit state authority. We've been around for 40 years with a continuous mission of helping families plan, save, and pay for college. And we have low-cost loans for families. We also have 3 savings plans for families, the U-Fund, the U-Plan, and the Attainable program. And then everything else we do at MEFA is about helping students and helping families and working with counselors and college administrators, all within the effort of college affordability. So this is part of the MEFA Institute. You can receive professional development points for being here on this webinar this morning. And we hope you will take advantage of all of the other lessons that we have in the MEFA Institute as well. And you have control of the audio today. If you have questions, and we think you will and hope you will, please put them in the Q&A feature, and we'll discuss those as we go along. If you need a live transcript, closed captioning, just click on that button and you'll be able to see the words that we're speaking. If you need to leave, you may do so. You probably won't want to, but we will also send you the recording, link to the recording, and the PowerPoint slides tomorrow. So you'll have access to those, and if you want to share them, and that will live on our website. And so I'm going to let our presenter, Dr. Timothy Poynton, tell you a little bit more about himself and his colleague, Amanda Sterk. But he is associate professor at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and an expert in all we're going to talk about today. So I will let him say a little bit more about himself, but we're thrilled. He has worked with us on many programs, and especially within this MEFA Institute. So you can find other recordings also in the MEFA Institute. And MEFA also is on all social media, so feel free to connect with us. Our newest is Instagram, and we put out all kinds of information that's relevant and timely and hopefully useful. And you can always call MEFA at any time, email us at our 800 number and our collegeplanning@mefa.org if we can be helpful to you in any ways. All right, Tim, I am going to stop sharing and we can let you do so.
All right. Whoops. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
All right, great. I've lost my there it is. I lost my bar for a minute. Thank you. Thank you, Julie, for that nice introduction and overview of MEFA, and welcome, counselors. Glad to be here. Unfortunately, let me just share with you my colleagues. Some of you may have been coming to see Amanda Sterk, who's been working with Rich LePan and I on this stuff for the past couple of years. Amanda lives in Cape Coral, Florida, which, as you may know, was at the center of Hurricane Ian down there. So while she is fine, her family's fine, and her property is overall fine, she doesn't have reliable internet yet, so she was unable to join us. And the university that she works at, Florida Southwestern University, actually has restrictions on when they can come to campus, and so she wasn't able to get there to use their internet either, unfortunately. So she is here in spirit. I will do my best to channel her. But just a little bit about us. So I'm Tim Poynton, as Julie mentioned, professor at UMass Boston in the school counseling program, preparing future school counselors. I teach mostly the college and career readiness courses for school counselors. Rich is a professor emeritus out at UMass Amherst. And he and I have been doing research in college counseling in particular for it's 14 years or so, I believe it is. And about 2 years ago now, Amanda reached out to us. Amanda is a former school counselor, and she developed a lot of the materials for the College Unmazed book, specific to Florida, as a way to help her do a better job of meeting her students' needs as a school counselor. And she reached out to us, seeing some of the work that Rich and I had done, when she wanted to see if the book might actually be something that's viable nationally. So that's how we got connected. Right now, Amanda is she's the director of the dual enrollment programs at Florida Southwestern University. Florida Southwestern University is a community college, so serves thousands of students in that capacity in their early college programs. So she's a wonderful resource, obviously, and I think our partnership has been wonderful in moving all of our collective kind of interests forward. Just a little bit more about my background is that what makes my doing this work today kind of interesting is that I had a very, I guess, non-traditional pathway to college. So it's interesting that I write about college choice now and helping people do that, approach that process systematically, because my own personal process was actually none of that. Part of the research that Rich and I have done, we developed a measure on college knowledge called the CAKE, the College Admissions Knowledge Evaluation. Did the research on that and published that in the Professional School Counseling Journal a few years ago, about 3 years ago now. One of the things that we learned from that research is that a lot of students are making decisions about which college to attend with relatively little fact-based information. The score on the College Admissions Knowledge Evaluation, the average score overall was about a 50 out of 100. So young people and their families are making decisions with relatively little of that fact-based information. And if you look at the score for first-generation students who don't have a parent who finished a 4-year degree, their college knowledge, they got about 4 out of 10 correct. So 40%, 42% actually is the actual number. So they are disadvantaged in their college going process. So for me personally, that first-generation approach, and really thinking about how we can better serve first-generation students is what drives a lot of my work. And as a first-generation student myself, I definitely approached the college choice process not systematically and with relatively little college knowledge. In fact, I had so little understanding of how to pay for college at the time that when I decided to go to college at the age of 20 so I graduated high school not planning to go to college. I wasn't a fantastic high school student, so that was the right choice for me at the time. But when I finally decided that I did want to attend college at age 20, I had so little understanding of how to pay for it in particular, coming from kind of a lower middle class background, that the thought of borrowing money that I didn't have, that was one of the values that we had, was that you don't spend money you don't have. The thought of borrowing money to attend college had so little appeal that I couldn't fathom paying for it. So I ended up joining the military, and I spent 3 years in the Army. Traveled the world, I guess, so to speak. I won't go down that path too far, but when I finished the military and decided to start college, I was a 24-year-old freshman. And again, because I had such little understanding of how to pay for college, when I made that decision, had I known a little bit about how to finance higher education and that the feasibility of taking out loans and the fact that I might have qualified for some financial aid, those were all things I had no idea about. So what we're going to talk about a little bit more today here is how to approach the process systematically, and we're going to focus on what we call the 6 keys of college fit, so that as people are looking at their options, it gives specific pieces of the puzzle, if you will, to pay attention to. So that's going to be the focus for today. All right. In terms of questions, Julie, I don't know if you can see the chat and monitor the chat. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat if you want. We'll definitely try to have at least a few minutes at the end for questions. So,
and I will do that. And if there's anything burning, I will let you know. That's great.
Great, thank you. All right. So this is an overview of the college maze and description of how we structure the book and therefore structure the college going process for folks. The first half of the book that we're not going to talk so much about tonight is these first 4 factors: the U factor, the academic factor, the career factor, and the money factor. Those things all describe the kinds of self and college knowledge that people need to effectively make an informed college decision. So Again, that's the first half of the book. It's building the knowledge and awareness of the resources that are available, how to make the most of your time in high school to make good academic choices that are going to prepare you for longer term success in both college and career. So that's the academic factor. The career factor is giving a little bit of information on how to think about career pathways. We don't focus as much on specific majors for people to choose, but we try to have people think of clusters or buckets of majors in terms of the 16 career pathways that you're likely familiar with. And then, of course, the money factor is an overview of things like net price, sticker price, financial aid, those kinds of things, all the things that MEFA certainly does a wonderful job supporting students, families, and counselors with. So that's the first half of the book. What we're going to focus on today is more the second half of the book. And the second half of the book describes the LEADS strategy, which is an acronym that we developed that describes the process I think that everybody goes through. So we developed a clever acronym, but we didn't develop a new process, right? Everybody develops a list, that's the L. Once people develop a list of colleges that they're interested in, they explore them, that's the E. When they've explored the colleges, maybe narrow their list down a little bit, then they decide which colleges to apply to, that's the A. And then of those places they apply to, they receive decisions, and then they make a decision for themselves on which one of those colleges they'll attend. That's the D. And the last part is the succeed in college piece, which is helping people and helping young people and their families prepare for the transition from high school to college. As you're likely aware of, summer melt is a problem in every school district. Summer melt refers to this notion that people graduate from high school with a plan to attend college. They've been accepted to college, yet they don't show up on a college campus. That's a problem in every school to some extent, but it does tend to be more of a problem in rural and urban schools than it is in suburban schools. But there is variability. The estimates range somewhere between 5 to 8% or so on the low end to up to 35 to 40% on the higher end. Summer melt rates. Again, these are people who left college, who left high school, admitted to a college who never showed up on a college campus. It's a huge issue. So that's why we include some transition planning to help people adjust and prepare for what to do over the summer so that they can succeed in that transition from high school to college, particularly knowing that most of you are not available to them or not as available to them in the summer. So this is one of the mind maps that we have. We've got 2 of these. This is just describing an overview of all the different kinds of knowledge that people need. It's the 4 factors that I described earlier, broken down into some more details of what pieces go into each factor. I'm not going to focus on that too much. This is a description of the LEADS process. Again, I already described this. It's just the strategy that we encourage people to employ to approach the process systematically. And what it does, and what we'll see here in a little bit, is that what it does is we link the LEADS strategy to the 6 keys of college fit that we're going to talk more about, so that you can look at the best information at each step of the process, so that you don't get overwhelmed by the information. I think that's one of the issues that we have, is that there's actually no shortage of information about colleges to help people make decisions about which college might be best for them. And in some ways, I think it's an overwhelming amount of information. So that's what we've tried to do, is construct this in a way that helps people approach the process in a way to use the data at the right times, so that they're not overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information, because it is an overwhelming amount of information. So, and this is a map of the LEADS strategy with all the pieces that go into each step of the process. All right. So I don't know if you all have seen this, but thinking about what is fit, what is college fit. This is a phenomena from Gestalt psychology. It actually is called the figure ground principle, and describes kind of the process and one of the shortcuts that our brain essentially uses to make sense of all the information that's out there. We're constantly processing boatloads of information, right? And this one's focused on our visual senses. So what our brain essentially does is that it decides what to focus on. So in this case, some of you look at this and you'll see, if you focus on the black, you'll see the ornate vase, right? And some of you probably looked at this and you see the 2 faces facing each other, right? But if I tell you that if you focus on the white, you can see the 2 faces, or if you focus on the black and you can see the ornate vase, if I tell you what to look for, chances are you can see the whole picture and you can see the whole thing. That's what we're trying to do with the 6 keys of college fit, is give people the tools to be able to see the whole picture about a college without using those kind of typical mental shortcuts, cognitive schemas, etc., things like that, that lead us to only focusing in on a small part of the picture without seeing the whole picture itself. So this is one of the things that kind of provides a nice backdrop for what we're trying to accomplish and what we're promoting for students and families as a way to approach the process. So this is the 6 keys of college fit. Going to get into much more details about this as we go on. I think generally speaking, most people do, most students and families do a good job, and counselors in supporting students with 3 of the 6 keys. I think that there's, paying attention to the academic match side of things. That's essentially how does my experience and academic qualifications fit at the college I'm considering. That's a big part of the academic match key. I think that one's pretty well covered by most people as they're approaching the college choice process. The financial match piece is another one that often gets good attention. Well, I think that there's oftentimes some more information people could pay attention to. I think that paying attention to the money factor is something that most students and families are attending to in their college choice process. And then the personal match piece, which gets at the, what kind of college is it, private, public, etc. How far is it from home? Does it have kinds of dorms that I like? Does it, those kinds of things is another thing that people typically do well with covering in a traditional college choice process. But we also bring in and encourage people to look at the other 3 keys that are sometimes not given quite as much attention as those. So one of them is career match. As somebody who teaches career development, my position and what all of the career theories essentially say, to give the Cliff Notes version of it, if you will, is that most 17 and 18-year-olds haven't had enough life or work experience to make an informed decision about what major is right for them. So there needs to be some more exploration. So the idea here with career match and thinking about it, particularly in the early stages of the college process, is do they have majors and career pathways that I'm interested in exploring? But also, are they going to be able to support me with some more instrumental, programming and advice to really get started in the college process? These are things like internships. Does the college have a structured program for careers? Some do, some don't. In what way is the college going to support each individual student's career development? That's essentially what we're getting at with the career match. We're also looking at student outcomes. Student outcomes are things like graduation rates, retention rates, alumni salary, loan default rates. If you're not familiar with that, is another piece of information. Loan default rates, as you may know, are the percent of students who are supposed to be in repayment but are not making payments on their loans when they're supposed to be. And there's variability in that statistic. I like to think of that loan default rate as a measure of the financial health, if you will, of the school's graduates, or put another way, perhaps, is does the college do a good job in preparing students for financially viable careers? So again, there's variability in that, and there's certainly other factors that may go into that loan default rate, but it's a piece of the puzzle, if you will, to consider. Graduation rates. The average graduation rates, they're reported as 4- and 6-year graduation rates. I don't know how many of your students and families are have a 6-year plan to finish college, right? Most students who are starting at college full-time have a 4-year plan, but the fact is that it's about 54 to 56% of it, I think, is the nationwide 54 or 56% is the nationwide 4-year college graduation rate. It jumps up into about 60 or so. Don't quote me exactly on those numbers, but it goes up a little bit if you look at the 6-year graduation rate, with private colleges tending to be more successful in graduating students on time than public colleges. So it's another piece of the puzzle to pay attention to. And the retention rate, as you may be familiar with, the retention rate describes the percent of students who started as full-time first-time freshmen at the college who returned as sophomores. I actually like to think of that retention rate as the freshman satisfaction score for a college, because it describes how many of the freshmen started at the college and were supported enough and satisfied enough with their experience to come back as a sophomore. So retention rate is actually can be kind of a telling figure, and when you look at the numbers, and we'll look at the numbers a little bit later, but when you get into the highly selective colleges, the Ivy Leagues, et cetera, places like that, they've all got really high retention rates, usually well above 90% in most cases. But when you start getting down into the less selective colleges that most of our students actually attend, because it's only about 1.5% of the student of the college going population that attends a highly selective or Ivy League college. So the other 98% or so of students that go to a four-year college are going to attend colleges that aren't as selective as that. And that's where you start seeing more variability in things like the retention rates and the graduation rates. So I would never say that a student should not attend a college that has a below average, perhaps, graduation or retention rate, but it should lead to asking some questions of the college, right? It's kind of helping students, families go into this kind of eyes wide open, if you will. What is the college doing to improve their graduation and retention rates, right? One of the challenges with the graduation rate data is that it's based on students who attended the colleges usually 7 or 8 years ago. Very likely that the college is doing something different to help improve student outcomes in those regards. So good to ask questions about that. Good to be aware of the information, but use your awareness of that information to answer some questions, particularly if the college is fitting you really well in lots of other ways. So that's the 6 keys of college fit. A quick overview of it. What we'll do now is kind of go through the leads strategy to kind of illustrate and talk about how we kind of recommend that people go through the process of choosing a college. So typically starting spring of junior year or right now actually for seniors, like when they're making their list, which is the L part. The primary objective of the list phase is to identify options that generally fit students without getting overwhelmed or missing good options. We recommend, because people like to have the numbers, these numbers can vary based on individual family circumstances and lots of other reasons, but a general starting point is somewhere between 10 to 15 as an initial kind of window, if you will, of colleges to look at. But again, that number is going to vary. So I did a little bit of research on this the other day. California actually has 233 four-year colleges to choose from. Texas has 129. We have Massachusetts. We have 91 here in little old Massachusetts, as you know, right? We have lots of good options. But if you're a student or family in Wyoming, you've got a choice of 3 colleges and you want to stay in Wyoming. 3 four-year colleges is all that they've got. Again, having 10 colleges to choose from in Wyoming is not going to be a possibility. So we're very fortunate to live here in New England where we've got lots of options. But what we're looking at here in the initial list phase are things related to the personal match. I've talked about those things already. Career match, do they have the majors and programs that you're interested in? And the academic match, in terms of, do they have the kinds of academic programs that I'm interested in and that make sense for me? What you won't see here at this point is financial match. And it's not because the money side of things is not important, but because using there's no good way that I know of anyway to filter colleges using something like the College Navigator, which is the tool that we recommend. But I'm not aware of a way to sort colleges by net price. So you can sort colleges and say, only give me colleges that cost less than $50,000 perhaps, but that's the sticker price. And as we'll see, and as you likely know, at private colleges in particular, there's lots of private colleges where nobody pays the sticker price. Literally nobody pays the sticker price. So if you filter colleges that cost more than $50,000 by the sticker price, you might be missing some really good options, and the students might be missing some really good options, affordable options, actually, once you factor in those scholarships, right? So, paying attention to the money side of things at this point, we don't recommend that because you might rule out really good options that you perceive to be unaffordable. Similarly, while we have public or private listed there, at this point, I would focus more on the other aspects of it, because there is, as you know, often a perception that public colleges are always more affordable for a student and family than a private college. And while that's often true, it's not always true, right? Because with the scholarships, if you have a talented student who can qualify for admission to the Ivy League schools, that's they can get close to a free ride, if not a free ride, a full scholarship, tuition, living expenses, etc., if they qualify for admission to one of these highly selective colleges. So But again, that's a small percentage of our population. And again, in the spirit of transparency, private colleges are very often more expensive than public colleges for most students and families, but they're not always. So it's worth it. It's worth exploring. All right, so that's the list phase. I'm trying to come up with initial kind of universe of colleges to explore. So of the 3,000 or so four-year colleges that exist in the United States, we're going to whittle that list down to a more manageable number using some relatively obtuse criteria. And this is an example again from the College Navigator, which is the tool that we like because it's paid for by your and my and their all of our students and families' tax dollars, and it's a relatively unbiased source of information. The information for the College Navigator is where many other tools like Naviance and iPads and the MEFA Pathways tool, they get a lot of information from iPads. So College Navigator is a tool to get access to the iPads data using a federally funded kind of resource. Right? So this is just here on the left-hand side, you can, if you haven't used this tool before, you can filter it by majors available, level of degree, all of these things as a way to help you whittle down your list of colleges to look at a little bit more closely. So after the list phase, we're going to get into the explore. So, sorry, my slide got a little blue line there. Sorry about that. But in the explore phase, so now we've come up with our initial list of colleges, 10 to 15 or so that we want to learn more about. So here we're going to consider all 6 keys. We're going to be looking at academic match in terms of selectivity. Now we're going to begin to think about what are my own personal chances of admission and use that to make some decisions about colleges to keep or eliminate from our list to start to narrow that list down as needed. We're going to look a little bit more deeply at the career match side of things in terms of the career services that are offered. Are they going to offer internships? Do they have robust internship programs, et cetera? Do they have, like Northeastern, do they have required co-ops or something like that as part of their experience? And how do we feel about that, right? So that's going to be another part of the 6 keys that we look at. And we're going to look again at the personal match side of things. We're going to dig into that a little bit more deeply to see, do they have the kind of diversity that I'm looking for? Are the living arrangements kind of the kinds of place where I could see myself living, things like that. And then we're also going to add the other 3 keys that weren't looked at in the list stage. And now we're going to look at aspects related to financial match. What's the cost? How affordable is this for us? What kinds of student support services do we have available? I didn't talk about this one actually earlier, but student supports are things like tutoring services, the academic labs that are available, mental health supports that are available on every college campus through their counseling centers. While every college campus that I know of anyway has allows access for students to mental health and counseling support. How long that support lasts, how many sessions you get, is there a copay, those kinds of things actually varies sometimes from college to college. So that's worth looking into if you have a student or family that could benefit from that kind of support. If you have students that are on an IEP or 504, you'll find actually some really great from learning more about this as I dig into this part of the data, but colleges vary tremendously in the percent of students that are registered with the Disability Services Office. And I've seen it range from places at like Northeastern, where it's 3% or less of the students are registered with disability services, to a place like Brown, where it's literally 25% of the student population of Brown is formally registered with their Disability Services Office. Literally 1 in 4 students at Brown. And what that tells me is that if I have a student who's thinking about attending a place like Brown that has a lot of students with registered with the Disabilities Office, is that they're making those programs and services readily available. And it's not that Northeastern is trying to hide them or anything like that, but the students seem to be more challenged in getting access to those kinds of services that could benefit them, and the accommodations that could help them succeed in college. Right? So that's another small piece of data that you can look at that gives a window into the student support services that are offered. And then at this stage, also in the explore stage, we're going to look at what are the student outcomes in terms of graduation rates, retention rates, the alumni salary, and the loan default rates. So I talked about 3 of those 4 things already. What I didn't talk about was the alumni salary. You'll find this information reported in the college scorecard, as you likely know. The thing to attend to with the alumni salary is that usually the alumni salaries that are published, usually for about 10 years after people graduate or so, like what is their salary? That's highly influenced by the major that they graduated in. So if you're looking at more traditional liberal arts colleges, they tend to have students with, they tend to have alumni with lower salaries than if you look at a place like WPI or STEM-oriented schools where the salaries tend to be a little bit higher. So you can dig into the college scorecard data to look at what the salary is by specific major. So that might be a better way to get a sense of that. But it's another piece of the puzzle. Again, for all of the student outcome data, you don't want to make a decision solely based on that data, but it becomes another part of the information to consider as you're thinking about where to apply. Right. All right, so this is the common data set. You may or may not know about the common data set. The common data set is a voluntary initiative that some colleges, maybe even many colleges, participate in. This is one of the things that Amanda really likes talking about and really likes using with students and families that she works with as she's helping them through the college choice process, because it provides a window and some insight into some information, in particular information that's hard to get from other places. In section C7, it asks the college to report what are the factors they consider when making admissions decisions for first-time full-time freshmen. This is for a large public school here in Massachusetts, and it describes the academic factors that are needed. So of course, the rigor of your secondary school record, your GPA, those things are reflected on your transcript most times, right, for students and families transcripts. And of course, standardized test scores. This was taken before COVID. As you know, most places have gone test optional or even test blind as a result of COVID, and those policies may be permanent, but this tells you the weight of those things. What I want to focus on here, though, is some of the non-academic factors. So level of applicant interest is describing what's called demonstrated interest. Again, I recognize that you may know what that is, but some people don't. So demonstrated interest is a factor, a non-academic factor that some colleges use when they make admissions decisions. And it is things like, did the student come and do a campus tour? Is the student on our email list? Are they following us on social media? Some colleges are even tracking at the level of, are they reading my email messages? Are they clicking on the links in the email messages to learn more about our college, right? So those are all ways that students can demonstrate interest. And I guess if you don't know, if you're a student or a family that doesn't know that a college uses demonstrated interest as a factor when they make an admissions decision, you're significantly disadvantaged with your application to that school, because you might not, for whatever reason, you might not be able to go visit the college. I'll just share a quick story from a student that I worked with here that had a student, had a brother who this student attended. Again, I'm trying to avoid naming the colleges, but this student attended a large state public university. And her brother was interested in applying to one of their more selective programs at that public university. And her brother didn't sign up for a campus tour or do anything because her sister went there. So he went and visited, and he knew everything that he felt like he needed to know to apply to the college. And he also applied to other highly selective colleges in Massachusetts. He applied to Tufts, MIT, places like that, and then was actually accepted in those places and denied from the public college. Again, I didn't talk to anybody in the admissions office there, but it seems to make sense that since the college uses demonstrated interest as one of the factors that they consider, and this student did not demonstrate interest, they decided not to extend an offer of admission to him, probably because they felt like the student's chances of him attending that college were pretty low. So they said, well, we won't even make him an offer because he's going to reject us anyway. So we're gonna save our spot, if you will, and make our admissions offer to another student who is more likely to attend, somebody that actually came and demonstrated interest in some tangible way, right? So again, there's lots of students and families that don't know this. So if you have a student or a family that's looking at going to that has a college that considers demonstrated interest as one of their factors, need to stress the importance of demonstrating interest in some way. The college tour is one of the most common ways, but there's other ways to do it if a college tour is unaffordable, for example, or if due to the timing, a student's not able to get there on campus. Be sure that the college knows that the student is really truly interested in them. There's lots of colleges also that don't use demonstrated interest, so I don't want to make it sound like it's something that every college uses. But if the college participates in this common data set initiative, you can look at this information and get a sense of what they're considering to know how important it is to do things like a college tour, etc. Again, making an informed decision, knowing this information can help you put together the most compelling application package possible for the student. If you know that. The challenge with the common data set is that not every college participates in this. Again, as I noted earlier, it's a voluntary initiative that colleges can participate in. And it tends to be that most, in my experience anyway, most public colleges participate in the common data set initiative. There's of the colleges that don't participate, it's mostly private schools from what I've seen. The way you find this common data set information, again, I know that many of you may know this, but some of you may not, but the easiest way to find the common data set and to see if they participate is to just do a Google search for the words common data set and then the college's name. And that will bring you to a page on the college's website, usually their institutional research division, where they present this kind of information. All right. This information does change a little bit from year to year, so it's worth checking in on to see if the admissions office has made any changes from year to year. Again, for example, this is an example, a screenshot I took from before COVID, but I like to leave it here because it's illustrative of other things. But it is information that changes from year to year. And I know at this particular college, actually, the level of importance given to considering demonstrated interest is no longer quite as important at this college as it used to be. So that's the common data set. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is how we can help students and families use, I guess, the scholarship information to better estimate the actual cost of attending college. So as you may know, this is in the College Navigator in the financial aid section of the College Navigator. And here's a college, one of those private colleges that every single student that attends this college, so this is all first-time, full-time freshmen, of those students who were admitted and chose to attend, every single one of them received a scholarship for about $39,000. So if you do the math on that, that's a 70% discount off the sticker price of tuition, 70% discount. So this college becomes much more affordable if you know that nobody pays the sticker price. It is an average tuition discount. Things like the family's income, et cetera, are going to impact how much you actually get, but that's a nearly $40,000 discount for every student on average. Some will get more, some will get less, but that's a huge discount, right? And if you took this college off your list because the sticker price was too high, you might be missing some really good opportunities. So strongly encourage students and families to consider this information while they're exploring the colleges to get a better sense of what the actual cost is. Obviously, the other way to do this is to look at the net price or to use the net price calculator on each college's website. That's going to give you a more personalized estimate of how much scholarship money the student and family are likely to qualify for. But this is a good kind of shortcut when you're looking at a bunch of different colleges. Some of the net price calculators are more cumbersome than others at the colleges. So this is a good shortcut to get some initial sense of the scholarship opportunities that are available at a college. Right? You've all probably heard about LaSalle. This has been in the news. I heard about this on the local news the other day. LaSalle is cutting their tuition. Again, made a lot of noise, if you will, about this. I think this is great, increasing the transparency about the actual costs. So they say here, highlighted in the purple here, they're cutting their tuition and standard room and board price from $59,000 to $39,500, 33% reduction over their published rate for the current school year. The reasons for doing so are admirable. They cite research here on the bottom that there's a lot of students, like we discussed earlier, there's a lot of students who won't even consider a college if the sticker price is too high. Even though it might be affordable and meets their other needs, they won't consider it because the sticker price is too high, right? So that's obviously an issue. But they say this reduction in price better reflects the actual out-of-pocket costs that the majority of current LaSalle students pay after scholarships are factored in. I did a little bit more digging, so I went into the College Navigator to look at how much are they giving now and what information is available now. So LaSalle is one of those places that gives every single student, so literally nobody who attends LaSalle, at least their first year, pays the full sticker price. The average discount is $22,588, which if you do the math, and you add up the tuition and the room and board, and you divide that by the scholarship amount, that's actually a 38% discount. So on average, right now, they're giving a 38% discount, and next year is going to be a 33% discount. What happens to that 5%? I'm not saying that LaSalle is doing anything nefarious. I'm hoping, and I'll bet, that they're still going to give out some scholarships, but they're going to do so in more of a need-based way as opposed to a merit-based way. So I don't think that they're necessarily just going to, increase their profits, if you will, by 5%. We'll see how this unfolds, I guess, over time. But the point here is that their actual the net price for attending LaSalle is probably going to be the same, but there's more transparency for them and for students and families and what the actual costs are, which in helping students and families navigate the college maze, this is a really good thing. So I applaud LaSalle for doing this. I know there's another college that did this recently too, but I didn't do my homework and research on that one. But there was another college that did something similar, and I hope that more and more colleges do this to add some more transparency to the costs, the actual costs of college, particularly the private colleges. This is what the net price by income looks like. This is available in the College Navigator in the net price section if you haven't looked at this stuff. So you see here, this is for UMass Amherst actually, or no, sorry, this is for a private college. I provided as a reference point the net price for UMass Amherst, which is for the lowest income bracket, $6,000 is the net price. And the highest income bracket is $24,000. So you can see on average, the state school is going to be less expensive than the private school. The challenge with the private school is that they have more money to give in terms of scholarships and merit-based financial aid and need-based financial aid. So the numbers might vary for individual students and families, but using this net price by income information can be a nice rule of thumb or a little shortcut to get a sense of how affordable colleges might be. All right. So you're looking at all this stuff and probably saying, how am I going to actually get this information to students and families, right? There's, you have to go visit the scorecard, you have to go visit the College Navigator, go visit college websites. So we actually developed, this is something that Amanda likes. I'm an Excel geek, so I like doing this kind of stuff, but we actually developed a, we developed a college data organizer. Sorry for being a little bit discombobulated. This is available for free download on our website, collegeandmaze.com/downloads. You can find this. Basically, it's an Excel-based tool, is a version in Google Sheets as well that does a lot of the legwork with pulling the information together for you. So it's got information for 3,700 or so colleges in here that talked about Brown University earlier, so we'll put them in here. So if you find them in the list or type in their name, it will pre-populate a lot of that information in one place. So here at Brown University, as you can see, it's highly selective. They admit 8% of the students. It provides all this information. What's the middle 50% for their SAT scores, the 25th and 75th percentiles. All of it, it's just pulling in all this data from iPads, essentially from the same data that the College Navigator uses. To put it all in one place to make it a little bit easier to compare side by side. So it can provide a nice shortcut for students and families, or you, if you're working in a school where a lot of your students are attending the same group of colleges, which is not uncommon, you can pre-populate the college data organizer with some of this information and use that to share with students and families so that it gives them even more of a running start, so to speak. But it puts the information all in one place. So you can put in the information for up to 12 colleges is the current limit for it, but it's got all the information that I've talked about already from iPads, all the information that's readily available. Net price, sticker price, scholarship information, that information I was just talking about here. So At Stonehill, 100% of students receive about a $38,000 discount. All that information is provided here, as well as and something that's not in the current version, but it's going to be in the next version when the data is updated in November. I'm adding this piece that I talked about earlier about the percent of students that are registered with disability services. So at Stonehill, for example, 4% or less. And as I noted earlier, Brown University, 25% of the students of their student population is registered with disability services. So it's just a nice way. It pulls in all the existing information and it gives students a place to actually pull in some other information, like the median salaries that are available from the college scorecard, and to make some judgments and assessments of how well they think the college fits them on each of the 6 keys. All right, so that's available for free download. I could probably spend the whole time talking about that, but I know I've only got about 5 or 10 minutes left. So I'm gonna move on to the next parts of the presentation, which I messed up. So sorry about that. Just give me 1 second to bring my, whoops. There we go. So is that, can you all, Julie, let me know if you can't see that.
I can see. Oh yeah, I can see.
All right, so you can see, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. So this is in the apply stage. So this is a rating scale that we developed that allows you to figure out what your fit is. And essentially you go through and you assess your fit on each of the 6 keys, and then you can use that, add them up essentially to determine what your overall fit is. It's just a more structured way to approach the process. Instead of thinking about how well it fits you, this actually asks you to rate each of the 6 keys and how well each of the 6 keys fits you and your desires and needs. All right, so this is a way to kind of structure the process for students and families that could benefit from that. Something else, so now we're in the apply stage. So what we talk about in the apply stage is obviously developing compelling applications, but choosing which colleges to apply to. This to me is in the college choice process, this is the most important part of the process because you can only choose to attend a college that you've applied to. So if you missed a really good option and you didn't apply there for whatever reason, that's a potential miss for you, right? So here, what we're looking at is essentially what is your chance of admissions, what is your overall fit, and considering both of those things is where informed decision making can happen. Okay, so we actually discourage the use of safety target reach. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it seems to me that by creating your list of places to apply to using the safety target reach criteria, it's a really disempowering process. It puts all the power, if you will, in the college's hands, where you're saying, as a student or family, you're saying essentially, I'm going to choose which colleges to apply to based on how acceptable I am to them. So what we encourage people to do to counter that is to include the overall fit. And the overall fit is the students and families' judgment of how well the college fits them. So it's a two-way street. This choice process is a two-way street. So we encourage people, instead of using safety target reach, just be more transparent about it and say, I have a low chance of admission, I have a moderate chance of admission, or I have a high chance of admission, right? Because that's really what we're talking about with safety target reach, chances of admission. But also consider explicitly at this phase how well the college fits you, the student or family. And using a chart like the one that we provided here, this 3x3 table, it can allow you to see where the variability is. And we would encourage essentially people to have some diversity on here. So just like it's a problem for somebody to apply to all reach schools, it's similarly a problem for somebody to apply to all schools where they have a low chance of admission. But I think if you look at this and you have the students really evaluate how well each college fits them, you're going to see some variability in that. One of the pieces of feedback or pushback that I get on this when I talk about this is that, well, we encourage, counselors say, we encourage students to only apply to colleges that fit them. And yes, well, I think that that's true. I think that it minimizes the differences between colleges in terms of the fit. Some colleges fit students better than others. So this provides a mechanism and a way of structuring that and allowing students to see that some colleges fit better than others. And I don't think it's always the case that the colleges where a student or family has the lowest chance of admission are always the highest fit colleges when you really dig into all 6 of the keys. All right, so this is again another rating scale that we use here in the decide phase. So now the applications were sent out, they come back with some decisions. And of those places where you were admitted or waitlisted, as the case may be, where you need to make a decision about what to do, whether to accept or reject the college's offer of admission. So here is where the emotional side of informed decision making comes in. Up to this point, we've really kind of minimized the role of emotions in the college going process, but emotions are an important part of informed decisions. And the way that we kind of phrase that, and the umbrella that we put the emotional side of informed decision making under is in this notion of desirability. So basically, we're asking the student to consider how desirable the college is to you. Let me show you the next slide. How desirable is the college? Is it a low or a moderate or a high desirability college? And then looking at that alongside the overall fit ratings, right? And you're going to look at the overall fit here again a little bit differently. For example, in particular related to financial match. At this point in the process, you've been admitted and you've gotten a financial aid award letter. So you have a really clear picture of what the actual costs are going to be. And that's going to help a student and their family make a more kind of accurate evaluation of what the financial match actually is now that you've got the award letter in hand, right? So some of the overall fit ratings might change at the decide phase. You might go do another visit or do some more research on the college and realize that this college fits me better than I thought it did, and this college doesn't quite fit me as well as I thought it did. So you'll make some changes in your overall fit ratings, but also really considering the desirability side of things, which encompasses, again, the emotional side of the decision making and those things that aren't captured by a number and aren't captured on the college data organizer. Those are just as important. And the last piece of the LEAD strategy, so now you've been accepted, you've made a decision on which college to apply to. The next phase of the process is to prepare for the transition from high school to college. What are you going to do over the summer, essentially, to ensure that you show up on campus ready to succeed? And we kind of broke that down into, you need to make plans in 3 specific areas. College success plan for financial integration. This is things like a really important one. So if you've been given scholarships, a lot of scholarships, what do you need to do to maintain those scholarships? There's some places that require a few hours of community service to maintain your scholarships. Other places require a certain grade point average. You need to be aware of what those things are so that you can go into your freshman year knowing what's expected of you to maintain that scholarship. Gonna prepare for academic integration. This is often done pretty well by colleges in terms of orientation, but you got to sign up for orientation, and you got to figure out what's their advising model like, and what can I do perhaps before I go to orientation to prepare for that. And then the social integration piece, particularly if you're living on campus, what's that going to look like? How can I be happy and satisfied with the way that my living arrangements work out? So it's attending to all 3 of those things. All right, so here's some information. Feel free to email me, tim.poynton@umb.edu. We actually have, if you're interested in taking a look at our book, if you go to collegeonmaze.com/ASCA, we presented at the ASCA conference this past summer in Austin, Texas, and you put in the password ASCA, you can actually see an online version of the book. It's the full version of the book, not redacted or anything, so feel free to go there and take a look. If you want more information about some of the things I've talked about today, you can go there. Also, like MEFA, we're on some of the social media, not as much as MEFA. We're on Instagram, Spotify, Facebook. You can find us there at College Unmazed or /College Unmazed. And something new that we've started doing for about a month now is we actually do a live podcast now on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. We've recorded those, so they're available at collegeonmaze.com/college conversations. But with that, thank you for your time and attention. We've got about 7 minutes left for questions, comments, reactions.
Yes, well, I will. There are a number of thank yous, Tim. Great presentation. I answered a question, but maybe you could give your thoughts on it too. People just wanted to talk about maybe the difference between a site like College Navigator and maybe Naviance with the matches. And I know, MEFA Pathway has some of that too, but I was sort of talking about one being general, one having the student information in there, but I don't know if you have other thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the great things that particularly colleges that use SAT scores or ACT scores, Naviance provides information that you really can't get anywhere else. And that's the context of students who graduated from your school, what their success was in the admissions process in terms of what the decision was made on them and what their what their GPA was, what their transcript looked like, and obviously what their test scores were. There's really no better way, at colleges that use test scores in particular to make decisions about your chances of admission. Still useful without the test scores, but perhaps not quite as useful as it was when you had that piece of information. But like I said, a lot of the MEFA pathways I know uses a lot of that IPEDS information, provides the same kinds of information. The difference between them is, like you said, the integration with local data. So not everywhere. I know in Massachusetts, most high schools have access to something. SCOIR score, I think it's called, is a new one that I've heard of. So out west, a lot of places use CapEx that provides a lot of the same information. It ends up being mostly the same information that's available in terms of the IPEDS data, but sometimes there's a twist, like Naviance adds local student data. But they're more similar than different. College Board Big Future has some additional information, saluting me specifically, which it is right now, but it's a lot of the same information. Right now, what I would say, though, the most accurate, up-to-date information, something I just learned recently, is the College Navigator actually has the latest information. The College Data Organizer on our website, for example, is a little bit out of date because they don't release the data to people like me, and I assume to people like the College Board, until November. But College Navigator actually has the data available that was updated based on last year for a lot of the information. So the College Navigator, and it's freely available, is my main reason for talking about it, but it's not terribly different. If you use other tools, feel free to use those other tools, as long as they're asking the same kinds of information. Other questions?
I don't see any, but it seems like people liked this time nice and early, and now people are probably headed off to work. Thank you again so much for joining us. This was really terrific.
Great. Yeah, thank you all. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. If you're watching the recording, feel free to email as well if you'd like. And yeah, enjoyed spending the morning with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.